You know, there are bad games, and then there are the kind of games that rip the soul out of a fan base. This wasn't just another loss for the Browns, this was a complete unveiling. A clear, undeniable picture of everything broken, everything rotten, and everything that's been swept under the rug for the last few years. They had the game in their hands for basically the entire night, and they still lost. And not just lost, they collapsed completely. You had future Hall of Famer Myles Garrett putting on a defensive masterclass, a D-line that looked like it was built in a lab, and cornerbacks who shut down one of the best defenses in the AFC. It was arguably one of the best defensive performances Cleveland has seen in years. And it didn't matter. Because on the other side of the ball, chaos. Pure, head-scratching, franchise-imploding chaos. Quarterbacks with no prep. An offensive line made of duct tape and hope. A head coach caught mumbling excuses and dodging questions like he's prepping for witness protection. And at the center of it all, a team that has no clue who should be leading them. This wasn't just poor execution. This wasn't just unlucky. This was systemic failure, caught in 4 kelvins. Someone failed, bad. And by the end of the night, Browns fans weren't just angry, they were done. Done watching generational talent get wasted. Done pretending this team is one move away. Done believing Kevin Stefanski has answers when he doesn't even seem to know his own quarterback is concussed. This game wasn't a fluke. This was a symptom. And we'd be fools not to ask the obvious question, what is really going on inside the Cleveland Browns organization? You don't have to be a football expert to know something seriously wrong in Cleveland. The Browns dropped their 8th game of the season, a gut-wrenching 23-16 meltdown against the Ravens. But what makes it worse is how predictable it felt. They didn't get outclassed by Lamar Jackson. They didn't get picked apart by some unstoppable offense. In fact, Cleveland led this game for more than 90% of the night. They had control, they had momentum. They had the game, and they gave it away. Again, that's not just incompetence, that's a culture of collapse. This wasn't a blowout, this wasn't a mismatch. It was a textbook example of how to lose a game you're supposed to win, how to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The Browns didn't get beat. They broke down, and they did it in ways that are becoming all too familiar. Missed adjustments, questionable coaching, no offensive rhythm, no urgency when it mattered most, and above all, no accountability. The final score reads like an average loss. Just another off night, right? Just another team with a rookie quarterback who wasn't ready for the big stage? Wrong. It was a foundation-level failure that exposed cracks all over this roster, cracks that have been forming for years, but now they're impossible to ignore. Let's start with the defense, because they don't deserve to be in this mess. Myles Garrett played like his life depended on it. 4 sacks, constant pressure. He made Lamar Jackson one of the most elusive quarterbacks in NFL history look human. That doesn't happen. Not unless you're playing at a generational level, Garrett carried. He bullied Baltimore's offensive line, disrupted every rhythm, and still, it wasn't enough. Because the offense offered absolutely nothing. And that, right there, is the story of the Browns this season. One of the league's best defenses playing like champions, only to have their effort wasted by an offense that seems allergic to competence. You'd watch a drive that ends in a clutch stop, and seconds later the ball is punted back because the offense couldn't stay on the field for more than 3 plays. How many times can you ask your defense to bail you out before the whole team turns on itself? And it's not just 1 or 2 plays going wrong, it's everything. Look deeper into the drive charts, and it's chaos. Stalled possessions, poor play calling, brutal protection, dropped passes, miscommunications, and quarterback play that looks worse each week. It's like watching a team try to drive a car with 3 flat tires and a blindfold on. And here's the worst part. This version of the Browns was built to compete. This season wasn't supposed to be a rebuild. They weren't supposed to be experimenting with quarterbacks mid-season or scrambling for answers while division rivals build playoff momentum. This roster, on paper, was constructed to make noise in the AFC. Instead, they're 2-8, anchor-heavy at the bottom of the standings. Not because they lack talent, but because they lack direction, firepower with no aim. The collapse isn't about talent, it's about leadership, execution, focus, and a system that's supposed to create stability, but is instead generating confusion. How does a team perform this badly while featuring one of the best defenses in the league? It's almost impressive. It takes effort to be this bad with this many good players on one side of the ball. It shouldn't be possible. But that's the Browns. Find a new way to fall apart. Find a new way to waste elite performances. Find a new way to break their own fans' hearts. That's what makes this more than just a disappointing loss. This is a warning sign that the entire structure, coaching, preparation, philosophy, might be fundamentally broken. When fans start using words like embarrassing, sickening, and a joke week after week, you know it's not about one bad quarter anymore. They've seen this movie before. They know exactly how it ends. And even when the Browns play their most complete defensive football in years, it still ends in failure. The worst part? There was a moment, just a glimpse, where things looked different. When rookie quarterback Shadur Sanders came in, and for a few snaps, started to shift the energy. Quick completions, crowd fired up. A young player stepping into a massive moment, carrying weight he was never supposed to hold. That was the spark. But then, the collapse hit again. Blitzes, pressure, no adjustments, 7 straight incompletions. Reality checked in fast, and so did every bad habit that's been plaguing this team all season. And that was it. Hope crushed again. So now, the Browns are staring down what's already being called a lost season, and maybe something even worse. Another wasted year for the most dominant player they've drafted in decades. And if you're wondering how a team that can dominate so many phases of the game can still lose, hang tight, because next comes the real problem, and it's not just who's throwing the football. Ask any coach at any level if your quarterback situation is dysfunctional, your whole team suffers. And right now, the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation isn't just dysfunctional, it's a full-blown disaster. Somehow, this team went from grooming a promising rookie starter to blindly lobbing a 5th-round backup into a division game, like they were drawing names out of a hat. And the way it all unraveled, it absolutely should have never gotten to this point. Let's rewind. Dillon Gabriel starts the game. He's your rookie quarterback, the supposed future of the franchise. He's not dominating, but he's steady. 7 of 10 passing, 68 yards in the first half. Not great, but he's managing the game well enough. No turnovers, no panic. Then halftime hits, and the unexpected happens. Suddenly, Dillon's on the bench. He's being evaluated for a possible concussion. The coaching staff gives no detailed answer about what happened, how it happened, or whether he was even showing symptoms. They just say, he got checked. Nothing more. Checked? That's your entire explanation? It's 2024. This is a franchise quarterback you're talking about. There should be crystal clear communication, instant updates, and transparency. But nope, it's radio silence. Kevin Stefanski doesn't even seem to know what triggered the evaluation in the first place. And while the Browns fumble answers at the podium, they make an even bigger gamble on the field. Enter Shadur Sanders, a 5th-round rookie with next to 0 real-time NFL experience. A guy who's barely sniffed first-team reps in practice. A kid who hasn't taken meaningful snaps with the starters all season. And you're asking him to walk into the second half of a divisional game in Baltimore. With a playoff-caliber defense, waiting to swallow him whole? Good luck, kid. To his credit, Shedeur starts strong. First 2 passes? Completed. The crowd is fired up. You can hear the spark almost immediately, fans hungry for something different, something to hope for, cheering like it's the opening scene to a comeback movie. But just like everything with the Browns, reality shows up quick. The next 7 passes? Incomplete. Baltimore's D isn't just pressuring Sanders, they're haunting him. Blitz packages raining in from every angle. Pocket collapsing before his feet are even set, receivers out of sync, protection breaking down, and a rookie QB desperately trying to survive a moment he was clearly never prepared for. Final stat line? 4 completions on 16 attempts, 47 yards, 1 interception. But here's the truth. No one wants to say out loud, that performance didn't happen in a vacuum. Shedeur wasn't just bad. He was set up to fail. Kevin Stefanski was asked, point-blank, if Shedeur had taken any significant reps with the starting unit before this game. The answer? No. Nothing had changed in practice. Gabriel got all the first-team snaps, every single one. Let that sink in for a second. You're in the NFL. You've got 2 rookie quarterbacks on your roster. You know that all it takes is 1 awkward hit, 1 rough sack, 1 concussion, and the backup has to step in. And yet, the Browns gave 0 meaningful reps to the one guy who might have to step into emergency action. That's not trusting your starter. That's flat-out malpractice. If a player fails because of his own decisions, fine. But if he fails because your staff didn't give him the tools, the prep, the rhythm, and the comfort with the playbook and teammates he needs to succeed, that's on you. And every Browns fan should be furious, not at Shedeur, but at the system that threw him into that chaos, completely blindfolded. Fast defenders, new receivers, brand new cadence, timing he's never practiced, reads he hasn't rehearsed. It's not just unfair, it's irresponsible. You can't drop a young quarterback into live fire and then act surprised when the entire offense combusts. And this wasn't just any defense he was facing. This was the Ravens' one of the best, most aggressive units in the AFC. Their defensive coordinator probably couldn't believe his luck. The second Shadur walked out there with no reps, no rhythm, and no protection, the blood was in the water. Pressure came nonstop, and the Browns had zero counter. But it's not just what happened on the field, it's the way Stefanski answered afterward that says everything. When asked why Shedeur hadn't been prepped more heavily leading up to this game, his response was barely a sentence. We're always trying to get your starter ready to play, especially when your starter is a rookie. Those reps are valuable. You think? But here's where that logic falls apart. They have two rookie quarterbacks. So giving one all the reps and the other literally none? That isn't focusing on development. That's gambling your season on the hope that nothing bad ever happens. Spoiler alert, in the NFL, something bad always happens. Why wasn't Shedeur getting 10 snaps a day with the starters? Why wasn't there a contingency plan? Why was the coaching staff acting like a backup rookie quarterback could just magically flip a switch mid-game and become game-ready without ever actually touching the ball in practice? Simple answer. They didn't plan for it. They didn't prepare, they didn't think, and now they're paying the price. This wasn't just a coaching oversight, it was the moment where fan trust snapped. Because if you're not preparing two rookie quarterbacks to survive an NFL season, you're not just being careless, you're being negligent. If you want to understand just how broken this team is, forget quarterback play for a second. Look at the offensive line. It's not just weak. It's not just underperforming. This offensive line is an active liability, one that's gotten so bad, it's not just affecting performance, it's borderline dangerous for whoever has to play behind it. Let's start with the facts. Before the first snap of the second half, the Browns were already staring down a line padded with ice packs and injury reports. Cam Robinson, knee injury. Dom Jones, knee injury. Jack Conklin, yep, knee injury. At one point, it felt like Stefanski would need to pull fans out of the first row just to find bodies to protect the quarterback. This isn't just about one guy going down. This is the entire unit crumbling, taking the system with it. Because for some reason known only to the football gods and Kevin Stefanski's stubborn whiteboard, this team continues to run an offense that requires time. Time in the pocket. Time for long developing routes. Time for reads. Time for plays to slowly unroll like clockwork. But guess what? The quarterback has no time. When your offensive line is patchworked with backups, when your starters are being carted off the field mid-game, and your quarterback's internal clock has boiled down to snap, ball, pray, you can't afford to run a playbook that was designed for the Golden State Warriors. Yet, that's exactly what Stefanski insists on running. There's no bold adjustment, no creative pivot, no shift in blocking schemes or rollout packages to buy quarterback space or an extra second to breathe. He's rolling into games with broken protection and still pretending like his system is functioning at full strength. It's the schematic version of watching someone build a house with no foundation during a hurricane and acting surprised when the walls collapse. Nobody's saying it's easy to overhaul a game plan mid-season, but the stubborn refusal to adapt isn't just costing games, it's compounding every other mistake on the field. Let's go back to Shedeur for a second. After being thrown into his NFL debut cold, with no starter reps, he steps behind this broken offensive line. And what does Kevin Stefanski ask him to do? Run-read heavy plays. Drop back in a collapsing pocket. Scan for timing routes. Make sharp secondary reads, while 300-pound linemen are flying at his chest without the courtesy of knocking first. It's system overload. And it's coaching negligence. Plain and simple. Any competent offensive staff, especially one dealing with a rookie QB, would adjust immediately. Would lean into rollouts, quick slants, short passes, simple reads, bootlegs, anything to protect the kid and give him a chance to build rhythm. But not the Browns. Instead, they gave Sanders a vanilla NFL playbook made for a healthy veteran with a strong O-line and shoveled it down his throat while the world collapsed around him. He wasn't just struggling, he was set up to fail. And it showed the moment he dropped back, the defense was on him. Not because he was bad, but because the scheme failed him. There was no chance to adjust protections, no help from motion reads, no quick snap rhythm to slow Baltimore's blitz packages. They lined up a rookie quarterback playing his first real NFL snaps against a defense that smelled blood in the water and then handed him the same brittle hammer they've used all season. It's not just bad coaching, it's lazy, it's arrogant, and it's boring. Every week, opposing defenses walk into the game already knowing the formula. Crush the O-line, force the quarterback off script, watch the passing game collapse, stack the box, crash the run, game over. This system has become one of the most predictable, punishable, and exploitable schemes in the entire league, and yet, nothing changes. If you're watching closely, the warning signs aren't even subtle anymore. Even when the Browns manage to move the ball, it often feels accidental, pure individual effort, a defender slipping, a receiver breaking free out of chaos. There's no rhythm, no identity, no control, and that all traces back to the offensive system. Because you can't run a Ferrari engine under the hood of a car that's missing 3 tires and expect it to cruise. The offensive line is broken. That's true, but staying in the same offensive structure despite that fact, that's insanity. And not the funny one's kind. The Browns aren't just losing games, they're risking the development of both their young quarterbacks by forcing them through a system that assumes a level of protection and chemistry that simply doesn't exist. You want to see a fireable offense? That's it. You want to see an entire franchise stall out again for the 4th quarterback in a row? Keep trying to force complex routes and long-developing plays behind a line held together with painkillers and shame. Every other team in the NFL adapts. Every other smart coordinator tailors their playbook to the situation. The Ravens? They rushed Shedeur until his eyes glazed because they knew Cleveland wasn't going to do anything to stop them. That's not just a mismatch on the field. That's a coaching failure at its core, and this offense will keep collapsing until someone owns that. Let's just be honest about something. If the Cleveland Browns offense had even a pulse, they'd be a playoff team. Because what the defense is doing this season, especially against opponents like the Ravens, isn't just impressive, it's historic, it's dominant, it's jaw-dropping at times. And yet, it's being wasted. Every single week. And there's no better example than what we just saw against Baltimore. While the offensive line collapsed, quarterbacks scrambled for their lives, and fans started mentally bookmarking mock drafts for 2025. The defense stepped up like warriors. Myles Garrett? He didn't just play well, he played like the Defensive Player of the Year. 4 sacks in one game. Against Lamar Jackson. Let that sentence breathe for a minute. 4 sacks. Against one of the most elusive, mobile, and creatively untouchable quarterbacks in football history. That's not just a standout performance. That's a level of dominance you almost never see from anyone. And Garrett didn't get those sacks camping in the backfield against busted third-stringers. He hunted Lamar through space, fought through double teams, shed blockers like old clothes, and still got the quarterback on the ground 4 times. This isn't just all-pro level play. This is Hall of Fame film. And yet, it still wasn't enough to win. Think about that. Your best player is putting together one of the best seasons of his career, and it's happening on a team that can't string together 4 scoring drives. A team so offensively broken that they're wasting legendary defensive performances as if they're disposable. Myles Garrett deserves better. But it's not just him. Flip the tape. Watch Mason Graham have his best game of the season. Pay attention to Carson Schlesinger, who's quietly making one of the strongest cases for Defensive Rookie of the Year in the entire league. Mike Hall disrupting run lanes. Denzel Ward locking up receivers. It's not just one guy out there. It's an entire unit doing their job at a level that screams championship potential, and they're being dragged down like they're tied to a sinking ship. This Browns defense has done everything you could possibly ask a unit to do. They've held star quarterbacks to their worst statistical games of the year. Stopped Derrick Henry from breaking free and running over them. Forced red zone stops, only to watch their offense go 3 and out on the next drive. Blocked, covered, blitzed, tackled, and disrupted at an elite level. And what do they get in return? A quarterback carousel, a broken offensive line. No game plan that complements their effort. No reward for holding a red-hot Ravens offense to 23 points and forcing multiple field goals instead of touchdowns. They do the dirty work, and the offense does nothing. At what point does that start to crack morale? Because, let's be real, defenses aren't built for this. A great defense can carry you for a while, but not forever. At some point, they break not because of physical exhaustion, but because mentally, they know they're alone. That's where Cleveland is now, a team split right down the middle. One half deserves an award. The other? A complete overhaul. And it's insane because for all the anger, the memes, the chaos on social media, the defensive side of the ball is not the problem. In fact, they're the only reason these games are anywhere close. But here's the part that makes your blood boil if you're a fan. No national media outlet is talking about them. You won't see Schlesinger's name trending. You won't hear about Garrett's defensive MVP campaign across every Sunday panel. Other teams, they post one breakup, and ESPN throws a graphic in the end zone. The Browns? They deliver a near-flawless defensive game and get silence. Why? Because this team keeps losing. And in the NFL, wins are oxygen. And when you can't breathe, people stop paying attention no matter how beautiful the play call was or how dominant your pass rush looked. So, what are we really watching here? We're seeing a defense built for January spent in November, irrelevance because the offense is allergic to momentum. We're watching players who should be in the spotlight get buried in box scores they had no hand in ruining. You could put this defense on 25 other teams and they'd be making playoff noise by now. But instead, they're on the Browns. And they're stuck waiting each week for some kind of breakthrough that never comes. Here's what should terrify the front office. Myles Garrett might not stick around for this. He doesn't owe the franchise blind loyalty. Not after putting up production like this, week after week, only to be gaslighted on Sunday night by another round of offensive incompetence. You can't keep burning years of a player's prime and expect him to smile through it forever. And it's not just about Garrett anymore, it's the entire defense watching their work get erased every time they hand the ball back to the offense. There's going to come a point, maybe sooner than people think, when players just start to check out. And when that tipping point hits, you won't see slow improvement. You'll see the whole thing collapse, just like it did with Baker and Johnny. And all the lost seasons where one side of the ball begged the other to meet them halfway and never got it. If the Browns want to stop the bleeding, it starts with one truth. You can't keep wasting a championship-caliber defense just because your offense is asleep at the wheel. Time is running out. Garrett won't be this dominant forever. Schlesinger won't be on a rookie deal forever. And fans? They ran out of patience a long time ago. At some point, every NFL franchise has to look in the mirror and admit when the real problem isn't the players. It's the man calling the shots. And for the Cleveland Browns, that moment has arrived. Because once upon a time, Kevin Stefanski was viewed as the future, a fresh mind with a sharp system. He was the guy who brought structure to dysfunction, the guy who won Coach of the Year in 2020, led the Browns to the playoffs, and gave this fan base its first real hope in decades. But fast forward to now, hope is gone, the magic is gone, and worst of all, the answers are gone too. The once innovative offense? Predictable. The confident play calling? Stale. The adjustments and second-half improvements? Non-existent. This isn't evolution, it's erosion. Quiet, steady erosion of performance, creativity, and control, and now, it's leaving wreckage everywhere. Let's break it down. Against the Ravens, the Browns' offense didn't just struggle, they failed in ways that trace directly back to coaching decisions. No prep for the backup quarterback. No system adjustment when the line fell apart. No quick game philosophy to offset blitzes. No rhythm, no momentum, no identity. And post-game? Instead of accountability, we got a masterclass in dodging blame and coach-speak fluff that answers nothing. When asked why Shadur Sanders got no first-team reps in practice, despite the obvious risk that Dillon Gabriel might miss time, Stefanski couldn't give a justification. Just vage coaching cliches. You're always getting your starter ready. Those reps are valuable. No explanation. No defense. No plan. Because the truth behind the curtain is simple. Stefanski underprepared the only other quarterback who might need to step in. He gambled on hope, prayed the rookie starter wouldn't get hurt, and now he's acting confused when that gamble exploded on national television. And when asked about Dillon's status during the game, he couldn't even offer real details on why his starting quarterback was pulled for a possible concussion. Yeah. Dillon got checked at halftime. I don't know all the details exactly. Excuse me? You're the head coach. Your first-year quarterback gets pulled mid-game with what could be a head injury in one of the most important divisional matchups of the season, and you don't know the details? That's not just troubling, that's unacceptable. You're either not being honest, or you're not in control. And either way, that's a massive red flag. The questions kept piling up, and so did Stefanski's empty answers. Ask about Shedur's confidence? He speaks in riddles about battling and things will clean up tomorrow. Ask about offensive rhythm? He mentions execution with no real solutions. There's no fire, no ownership. Just overly polished sound bites that always say something but never mean anything. That's what happens when a coach starts coasting on a reputation instead of adapting to reality. Because let's be honest, Stefanski has been riding the coattails of that 2020 playoff season for nearly 4 years now. And the further away he gets from that playoff win, the clearer it becomes that maybe, just maybe, 2020 wasn't a glimpse of greatness. Maybe it was just the peak before the fall. Since then, regression across the board, 0 playoff appearances, increasing questions about game management, rookie QBs thrown into the fire without support, a once dynamic offense now sinking in cement, and here's the twist of the knife, this team is too talented to be this bad. If you had a weak roster, rebuilding from top to bottom, some of this might be understandable. But the Browns? They've invested in stars. They're stacked defensively. They have elite edge rushers, young playmakers, first-round talent across the board. And yet, they look like a JV squad when it's time to scheme, execute, and adjust. Because the truth is brutally simple. This isn't a talent issue anymore. It's a coaching issue. Browns fans have watched this slow-motion unraveling for months now. Every press conference feels like deja vu. Every post-game quote feels like a warmed-up version of the week before. And no matter how many times Stefanski insists, "We'll look at the tape," the results never change. Same weak offensive structure. Same lack of creativity. Same refusal to adapt the playbook to the players on the field. And worst of all, same result. Loss after loss after loss. The frustration fans feel isn't just about being 2-8, it's about watching winnable games slip away because of football decisions that make no sense, repeating bad calls, throwing rookies into the fire unprepared, ignoring the broken O-line, sticking to a system that obviously isn't working. It's insanity by design. And it's got fans asking a harsh question. Has Kevin Stefanski lost the team? Because when communication breaks down, when quarterbacks are confused and defenses start to play angry because no one's helping them, that's not just dysfunction. That's what happens when players stop believing the person in charge has a plan. Right now, Kevin Stefanski is earning a reputation not as a fearless offensive mind, not as a player's coach, but as a guy who refuses to change, who holds back his roster, and who might be wasting yet another window, just like every coach before him. For most of the game, Shadur Sanders looked exactly how you'd expect a fifth-round rookie QB to look when he's been thrown into a divisional war zone with zero preparation. Lost, overwhelmed, and completely out of sync. And let's be real, his stat line was brutal. 4 completions, 6 pass attempts, 47 yards, 1 interception. Those numbers aren't just forgettable. They're the kind of stats that make fans immediately turn the page to next year's draft board. But hold up, because if you turn the TV off in the middle of the third quarter, you missed something. With 2 minutes left in the game, down by a touchdown, pinned deep in their own territory with the stadium loud, possessions limited, and pressure suffocating, something strange happened. Shadur stopped folding. He stood in the pocket, eyes downfield. He moved through his reads. He escaped pressure with his legs when necessary and protected the football. He made throws, real NBA-level throws, in rhythm, with confidence, not just desperation heaves. For the first time all night, he didn't look like a scared rookie playing out of his depth. He looked like a quarterback. Let's be clear, we're not overhyping a 2-minute drive and declaring him the next franchise savior. We're not pretending 4 good plays rewrite a night full of struggles. But here's the thing. In a game where everything had gone wrong, where coaching failed him and protection collapsed before he could blink, Shedeur still found poise, still showed grit, still gave Cleveland fans something they haven't seen in weeks, a spark. It wasn't a miracle drive. It didn't end in a touchdown. It didn't even tie the game. But it was the first honest glimpse of who this kid might be if given a real shot. Because here's the truth, no one around the organization wants to admit. So far, the Browns haven't developed Shadur Sanders. They haven't coached him up. They haven't built a system around him. They haven't even given him reps. All they did was draft him and hope they'd never need him. And when they did need him, they asked him to step into a broken offense behind a broken line with broken preparation and save the season. What were they expecting? Even with all that going wrong, when the pressure was at its highest, he didn't check out. That's the kind of moment coaches and execs need to wake up and pay attention to. Because you can't coach poise. You can mold mechanics, you can fine-tune accuracy, you can build timing. But you cannot teach composure under pressure. And Shadur showed that raw as he is. Let's look at the final moments. Down 7, 2-minute warning, no timeouts. Baltimore bringing heat off the edge, aggressive with disguise pre-snap. Shedeur doesn't panic. He steps up. He escapes outside the pocket when needed and throws on the run. He shuffles under collapsing pass protection and climbs the pocket. Those are veteran movements. Was it perfect? No. Was it progress? Absolutely. For those few drives, he didn't just survive, he competed. And now, with Dillon Gabriel in concussion protocol and a season now drifting into evaluation mode, the Browns have a decision to make, and it better not take long. You start Shadur Sanders, you give him the reps, you build around him and find out what you have before you're back in the "which QB do we draft next?" conversation again. Because if you've learned anything from this disaster of a season, it should be this. Throwing someone into the fire without the tools doesn't measure their ability. It just shows your failure to prepare them. But giving them a chance with the system built around their strengths, that's how you find out who they can become. You let Shedeur throw deep because he has the arm. You let him move because his pocket awareness is very real. You don't shove him into a pre-digested, already failing system you build around him and let the offense evolve, even if it's messy. What the Browns can't afford to do is bench him again just to protect him while doing absolutely nothing to develop him. That's how you repeat every quarterback mistake you've already made for the past 20 years. Look, we're not selling false hope here. Maybe Shedeur flames out. Maybe you start him for 7 games and it's clear he's not the guy. That's part of the deal. But if you don't even give him a viable shot, don't give him reps, don't design a game plan around his natural skills, you'll never know. And Browns fans are getting tired of never knowing. Because every season ends the same way with elite talent on one side of the ball, quarterback questions on the other, a broken system clinging to outdated habits, and the constant fear that maybe the next guy won't have a chance either. But for the first time in a while, there's a sliver of something different. Maybe, just maybe, Shadur Sanders is that difference. Not because he's perfect, not because he's ready right now, but because despite the disaster around him, lightning struck for a moment. Calm in the storm, confidence in chaos, quarterback composure when everything around him was crashing. And when you've spent a decade cycling through failed projects, botched picks, and wasted opportunities, that moment matters. Here's the thing, no one in the front office wants to say out loud, this season is over. Not mathematically, not officially, but emotionally, spiritually, practically, done. The playoff race isn't just out of reach, it's a fantasy. The Browns aren't just losing games. They're unraveling in real time, and the rest of the division is pulling away like they're driving Ferraris in Cleveland stuck trying to hotwire a lawnmower. So now what? That's the million-dollar question, and it's one this franchise can't afford to get wrong again. Because as hopeless as things may feel right now, this stretch, these last 7 games might actually be the most important stretch of the entire season. Not because they're chasing wins, because they're finally forced to confront who they are and what they've become. You've got a quarterback carousel that's officially spinning out of control. Your rookie starters in concussion protocol. Your 5th-round emergency backup just showed a glimpse of hope in a loss. Your offensive system is falling apart like it's allergic to pressure, and your head coach won't stop giving the same recycled answers about execution while the entire building is on fire behind him. This is your moment. Your fork in the road. You can either limp your way to the end, put Dillon Gabriel back in when he clears protocol, dial up the same stale game plans, eat a few more losses, and roll over with a 4-13 record and another offseason full of if-only conversations. Or you can make the bold move. Start Shadur Sanders. Right now. For the rest of the season. Not because he earned it with his stat line, because he didn't. But because there is nothing left to lose, and all the upside in the world, if he's even half of what those final 2 minutes suggested, You don't need to crown him. You don't need to plaster his face on season tickets. You just need to find out. Because that's the problem. The Browns keep waiting for the perfect situation, the perfect quarterback, the perfect opportunity. They try to force square pegs into round systems. They try to protect young talent by hiding it from adversity, only to throw them in when it's too late. Stop that cycle now. Let Shedeur take all the reps. Let him build chemistry with the starters. Let the coaches finally start adjusting the play design to match his skill set, not the other way around. Hell, let the kid throw 40 times a game if that's what it takes to see exactly what's in the tank. You owe that to yourself and to your fans, who are sick of watching off-season promise die by mid-October every single year. Because best case scenario, he struggles, but shows more flashes, shows leadership, composure, development. Worst case? You realize he's not the guy, and guess what? You'll have a top 5 draft pick to go get the real deal in 2025 anyway. That's not failure, that's clarity. But sitting on the fence does nothing. Giving Dylan Gabriel another partial season, or shuffling back and forth like it's a preseason depth chart battle, accomplishes nothing. When you're 2-8, pretending like you're just trying to win games is nonsense. You're building a future, now. Whether you mean to or not. And that future shouldn't be built on fear. It should be built on information. Because right now, you don't know if your 5th-round pick is a project or a diamond in the rough. You don't know if Kevin Stefanski has anything left in the playbook that hasn't already been diagnosed and neutralized by every defensive coordinator in the AFC. You don't know if this locker room believes in a direction anymore, or if they're just going through the motions until exit interviews. So find out. You owe that to Myles Garrett, who's playing out of his mind with absolutely nothing to show for it. You owe that to Carson Schlesinger, Mason Graham, and the entire defense, who've played well enough to be atop the division, only to be tethered to a sinking offense that hands them L after L. And you owe that to the fans, the ones who've endured this same story over and over and over again. New draft picks, new coaching staff, new hopes, same ending. This isn't just about evaluating one quarterback. It's a test for the franchise itself. Can the Browns show they've learned anything? Can they pivot? Can they admit when a system's broken and have the guts to build a new one? Because the rest of this league grows. Every year. Baltimore? They're pulling away. Pittsburgh? Always tough. Cincinnati? Burrow is back. And Cleveland? Still trying to make a 2020 playbook work in 2025. So, what's next? It's choice time. You can finish this season in chaos and enter next year with more question marks than ever. Or, you can take control of this narrative. Let Shedeur play. Give him every advantage you failed to give him before. Practice reps, time with starters, designed plays, a system he actually fits into. Be honest, raw or not, wasn't his 2-minute command the most confident moment we've seen under center all year? What if that's just the beginning? You won't know until you try. There's no sugarcoating this anymore. The 2024 Cleveland Browns have become the walking, talking symbol of wasted potential. A defense that plays like champions absolutely choked to death by an offense that can't execute the basics, a quarterback room wrapped in confusion, an offensive line stitched together with tape and luck, and a coaching staff that's rapidly running out of time, answers, and credibility. This is not just a down year. This is an organizational integrity test, and once again, the Browns are failing it. Because you don't have to be 2-8 when you have Myles Garrett playing like the best defensive player in the league. You don't have to waste rookie firepower like Carson Schlesinger. You don't have to mismanage quarterbacks so poorly that they're getting 0 practice reps before being thrown into a live NFL firestorm. You chose this. Not intentionally, but through repeated negligence, familiar decisions, and inflexible systems. Let's just tell it straight. Kevin Stefanski's once innovative offense is predictable and outdated. The coaching staff isn't adjusting to personnel or injuries. They're forcing players into schemes that no longer work. Quarterbacks aren't being developed, they're being thrown overboard and asked to swim upstream. And most damning of all, the defense is pulling their weight, and still, nothing changes. This should be a team competing for playoff spots. Instead, they're headed toward a top 5 draft pick again. And not even because they're trying to tank, they're just genuinely this broken. Let that settle. A Defense of the Year candidate and possibly a Droy on the same roster. On a team with 2 wins. That's not misfortune. That's franchise malpractice. And no, this isn't all on Shadur Sanders. or Dylan Gabriel, or a patchwork offensive line. This is about the leadership, the culture, the refusal to self-reflect, the safe press conference answers stacked on top of stale play calls, wrapped inside game plans that are dead before kickoff. You want to know when fans gave up? It wasn't when they hit 2-6 or 2-7. It was when they saw nothing change. Same playbook, same quotes, same avoidance from the coaching staff, week after week. And that hopeless feeling? It's not unique. It's not new. It's not unexpected. It's tradition now. Because with the Cleveland Browns, there's always a reason to believe, and there's always a system to blame when it collapses. Every year, there's a new savior, a new draft pick, a new innovative hire, a reason to think, this time, maybe we've got it right. And then comes the fog, the losing streak, the press conferences, the slow unraveling of yet another forgotten season. Same story, different jersey numbers. And the league laughs. Fans outside Cleveland make memes and jokes and TikToks at your expense. But for Browns fans, this is pain. This is loyalty being taken for granted. This is watching generational defenders rot in obscurity because the offense can't break 20 points. So where do they go from here? You can tank your way into another bright, shiny quarterback. Sure, maybe May, maybe Williams if the universe cracks in their favor, and maybe that is the move they have to make. But here's the lesson. It won't matter who's under center if this system continues to eat young quarterbacks alive. It didn't work with Baker. It didn't work with Johnny. It hasn't worked with Dylan or Shedeur, not because they're broken, but because the foundation around them is. So if you're serious about turning this franchise around, truly serious, you don't just change players. You change philosophy. You start from honesty, from accountability, from a system built around your talent, instead of forcing players into doomed archetypes. You stop wasting defensive gold. You stop drafting quarterbacks just to run them through the meat grinder. You stop pretending like Coach of the Year in 2020 still means something in 2025. Because Myles Garrett is 28 years old. That window isn't forever. If you waste it, you don't get another one. You've got 7 games left. 7 games to rewrite the narrative, if not for the standings, then for the locker room, the fan base, the culture. Because everyone in this building needs to prove something before this gets worse. Stefanski? He's coaching for his career in real time. Shedeur? He's either your answer or your exit interview. This defense? They deserve to know whether this franchise values them or plans on burying them beneath another year of incompetence. The story of 2024 isn't just about a bad season. It's a case study in what happens when a loaded defense meets a rudderless offense. It's a franchise trying so hard to fix its quarterback problem that it can't see the bigger problem standing right on the sideline. And unless Cleveland makes a bold correction now, they'll be back here again. Same result, same cycle, same disappointment. Because in the NFL, you cannot keep wasting this much defensive talent and expect it to work out next time. Eventually, the players leave, the fans stop believing, and all that's left is the empty promise of maybe next year. So, if anyone in Berea is really listening, this is your last warning. Hope doesn't live here anymore. It left miles ago, right behind every quarterback you broke. Welcome to Cleveland football, where defense shines and dreams go to waste.